People ask me all the time, what is it like to be a woman leader, right? I think we've all seen in the last 5 years and in the last 20 years a big change in how our organizations are structured and the way we're doing our hiring and the way that we're managing our teams. I think we can all acknowledge broadly that for the things that women do the same as men, they're all of the things that have to do with business. They're all the decisions that have to do with running my company. And most of the time, I'm in a fairly gender neutral kind of a place in all of these conversations. But I am often the only woman in a room of 10 people having a conversation about technology or having a conversation about senior level decisions in the company. And that's not something that I take lightly, because I want to make sure that I'm providing the guidance and the role model, the example that I can bring by having the privilege of being in that position. And they spend time thinking about their voice. How am I being presented and how am I being thought of, and how do I make sure that the voices of everybody around me are being heard and being empowered and being raised. And oddly, I think that they spend a lot more time, we all spend a lot more time talking about fault. Is it my fault that this happened? Whose fault is it that that happened, right? Which is very different than blame. Because when I look at the flip side and I think about the male colleagues that I work with and the male CEOs and the male groups of people, the flip side of that is a little bit more focused on why this went wrong, what problem solving was there, whose fault was it, but not necessarily on the fault side. Which brings me to the piece that I really want to spend some time talking to you about and inviting you to spend a lot of time thinking about. And I'm going to start by saying something you'll not normally hear me say, which is to, excuse me, can I please tell you just something that I think maybe you guys might want to listen to today? I read an article 5 years ago that talked about women apologizing 80 times a day. And I couldn't believe that I possibly was one of those people. And I spent the next week really, really counting every single time that I did it. And I never thought of myself as someone who wasn't extraordinarily confident. I'm a CEO of a technology company, a Wharton MBA. I am, that's not me. And it was me. Excuse me, waiter, could I please bother you for a glass of water? I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just have one thing that I think you guys might want to hear me have to say. Right? Think about it. All day long. And what does that do to you? What does that do to your sense of self? When you don't have to apologize for asking the waiter who you're paying for a glass of water. Right? Hello, waiter. I would like a glass of water. You could say please if you want. Right? But what does that do to your soul every single day when you're spending every single day apologizing for asking someone for a pencil? Right? What does that do to the perception that people have of you when they're sitting in the room with you and you say, excuse me, I would just like to make a point that I think maybe we should consider in this meeting. Like, how many women do you know, maybe even yourselves, who walk out of a meeting and say, I'm so frustrated because I made a point at that meeting, and then 5 minutes later, Mr. Bob so-and-so made the exact same point, and when he said it, everybody thought it was a good idea, but when I said it, nobody listened to me. And I'm going to suggest to you that it's because you started the conversation with, excuse me, I just would like to say that maybe we should. Instead of saying, I did some analysis yesterday and it turns out that if we hire such and such a company instead of such and such a company, we're going to save 10%. And I made a really deliberate effort from that day forward to be really aware of every single time, to forbid myself to use any of those sorry words. And it's remarkable the change that it makes in your soul, in your perception when you walk into a room. When you come into a room and you're 5 minutes late for a meeting, and you come in and you say, thank you so much for waiting for me, instead of, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I'm late. What does that do to every single person in the room who was waiting for you? You've acknowledged that you did something that was inconvenient to everyone. You're not being rude and just walking in and ignoring it, but you're taking your power back. You're going to find very quickly that you have a different perception from your employees, from your students, from your colleagues, from your husband, from your boss, from your investors, from every single person you walk into in the room. It's hard. Now, I apologize if I did something wrong. Of course I'm going to apologize, but it means something much more to my friends when I say, I'm deeply sorry for that. But it's an actual apology for something I actually really did. So I'm not suggesting not owning what you do, but instead really thinking about that differently. How do I empower everybody else around me as a friend, as a leader, as a coworker, as a teacher, as a student? How can I take that next step forward and take the confidence and take all of the things I just mentioned? I spend more time thinking about how communication impacts my team. I spend more time thinking about how communication strategies affect my team. I spend more time thinking about how to make my team more effective for me, and how voices impact how we act in the world. And I'm going to say that whenever you're working with anybody, think about what your expectations of yourself and what your expectations of other people do to them. I have an example that my right-hand woman, my assistant, Jasmine, asked me to share with you. She said, you know, Cynthia, you said something to me 4 years ago that changed my entire world and my entire perception of myself and my entire career, and in fact caused me to break up with this terrible boyfriend I had and become in a relationship with someone who's now treats me the way I deserve. And I don't even know that you said it. So I'd like you to tell people the story of the day that you said that minor thing to me. And I think that it's a great example of how I tend to treat everybody that I work with in all of my teams. We were off-site at a project in Dublin, and we had a big conference that was starting, and I was speaking at it, and I was the president of the company at the time, and I had a lot of things I had to get done that day. And the Dublin-based team just came to her and said, hey, Jasmine, we have to get all of these other people on the bus, and we've got to go and do blah, 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 blah. Can you figure out how to get these other 50 people, from where we are to downtown Dublin in the next half hour? And off they go. And she'd never been to Ireland before. Right? So she comes over to me hysterical and says, oh my God, Cynthia, I don't know what to do. I don't know where the taxis are. I don't know who these people are. I don't know anyone's name. I don't know anything. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And I just turned around to her and I just looked at her and I said, do you know what I do every time I have a problem like that? Is I actually call Jasmine and ask her what she would do. And I walked away and she looked at me and she said, oh, that's right. This is what I do. I'm the person who knows how to figure all of this stuff out. And if anybody's going to know how to do it, I'm the one who knows how to figure this out. And I didn't stop to help her figure it out. I said, I don't know, what would Jasmine do? And so now she brings that story with herself. Whenever she has any doubts, she knows that she has within her the person that I had that much confidence in. And that's what I try to bring to all of my teams and all of my coworkers and all of my environments. And I think that that's our superpower, right? That's all of us as women, that's our superpower, is that we know how to bring that into the room. So I encourage you to cherish that and nurture that and remember that that is your superpower too. But those are the things that I wanted to share with you about why we should be celebrated every day and not just on March 8th. Thank you.